This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Ban on Popular Front of India and its affiliates. The participants are Arun Bhagat, former Director, Intelligence Bureau, and Namrata B.G. Ahuja, journalist.
Sir, first question is, the ban on the Popular Front of India wasn't a sudden decision. It was preceded by raids, arrest of multiple PFI leaders, their cadres, and collection of evidence, which was very crucial before the ban could come in. This seemed to be a very well thought out and planned strategy and operation by intelligence and investigating agencies, where the government chipped in by getting the Muslim organizations on board, by consulting with them to denounce the extremist ideology, and also creating an atmosphere where the entire country could come together to be able to support the ban. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
This PFI is a very old organization. It was set up in 2004 by three fundamentalist Islamic organizations combining together in South India. And after that, they started increasing their spread, and very quickly they spread to virtually all over India. Their motivation was that they wanted to establish an Islamic government. They also started getting a lot of aid and money from abroad, and also developed some connections with fundamentalist organizations, Islamic organizations abroad. They tried to emulate, and they have been praising Muslim Brotherhood organization. As a matter of fact, the Muslim Brotherhood organization was banned, and in Egypt they had a special day and programs organized for that. Also, some connections have been found with the ISIS as well as the Al-Qaeda. So right from the very beginning, they had intentions were very, very bad, and they started indulging in various criminal activities, whether it was bombing, whether it was use of explosives. Some murders have been committed by their cadres, and 1,400 is the number, roughly, PFI cadres who have been arrested. So the government had to take some decision. They could not allow this organization to continue to spread and to motivate people, mislead their community. As a matter of fact, they had very aggressive demonstrations, complete with people dressed up in uniform and carrying bamboo sticks, and having many programs were held all over the country for training their cadres. The government had to take a decision, and I think it is a right time that they did. Hopefully, there will be a lot of evidence which they have collected, because it was also done very secretly, and I don't think there was any indication to anybody that this effort would be made, this raids would be conducted in so many states simultaneously. About 450 of their functionaries, senior functionaries and leaders have been arrested, and a lot of documents as well as electronic equipment has been seized. So hopefully there will be a lot of evidence, and the tribunal will also be satisfied and will reaffirm the decision of the government to ban this organization and suspend it for 5 years.
The fact is that a large part of the PFI cadres, particularly their top leadership, comes from the SIMI, the Students Islamic Movement of India, which was banned in 2001. The fact that a lot of these SIMI cadres, soon after the ban on SIMI, switched over to organizations like the PFI and began their activities in another form, changing color, just the way multiple terror organizations do the moment they are banned. How do you see this whole crackdown again clamping heavily down on outfits like the SIMI, which have made inroads not just in PFI, but the radicalization and the kind of extremism is rampant across?
There is always an apprehension that some other organizations will come up, but in this case there are about 8 associated organizations of the PFI which have also been banned. So I think that this is very good operation which has been conducted, and the sheer scale of it has been shows that there was a lot of planning and organization, and at the same they were able to maintain their secrecy. Fortunately, now we have been able to develop channels of information coming in from abroad, various agencies, As a matter of fact, the United Nations is also taking a lot of interest in this. With this feedback coming in, particularly the money part, if is stopped, foreign money coming in for these organizations, then we will have a major success.
More work seems to have been done by the Enforcement Directorate in this direction, where before the ban and the raids, a lot of their accounts were seized. The kind of money laundering network they had formed with their own operatives in Gulf countries had been exposed and presented before the government. So in that sense, how do you see simultaneously cracking down on choking the funds of an organization like this is much more important than just clamping down with penal provisions?
There has to be a multiple approach. Apart from identification of these people, identification of their centers, identification of where they are meeting, and gaining information about what they are planning to do, what type of propaganda they are continuing. Finance is a very important element, and if we are successful in preventing funds coming into them and also preventing people from contributing to these so-called causes which their propaganda and their fundamentalist ideas which they propound, I think that will be a very positive factor. But at the same time, one has to realize that the Islamist radical groups are very large number and they are very, very active, and every time we have to be very careful about it.
It's been a shocking misleading of, the Muslim community, with PFI trying to portray itself as a charitable organization working for the downtrodden, and then to have bogus receipts, bogus funding, and it creates a disenchantment amongst a section of a large population where they feel cheated by somebody who was trying to project themselves as the messiahs taking a community forward. How do you think the PFI has really let down its people who were looking for genuine help, or a genuine charitable organization for that matter?
You see, here we have educated our own masses also. The people themselves have to realize, and I think there is a movement. It may be very slight, it may be very early, but some movement has started in the community itself to rethink whether they should go by the fundamentalist ideologies which have been going around in the past and which I would say were freely being propounded. Now that thinking in the community is very, very necessary, and I think the government in the different states as well as center, they have to pay attention to this, and some steps which are being taken like in UP, making the madrasas, the curriculum of the madrasas broad-based and contemporary rather than restricting them to religious doctrination and teaching. I think this is something which has to be done. The such like areas have to be identified, whether they are the madrasas or their religious places, and I think if we make an effort, we will be able to convince the people that what is being practiced by some of them is entirely wrong. They must not fall or become a prey to them.
The PSI was also fueling the Anti-Citizenship Amendment Act protests in the country, the Hathras, the kind of fueling of protests across the country, raising issues of human rights violations where there were none, was a kind of a strategy that the PFI was employing across the country to disturb communal harmony and create public unrest. How do you see the PFI's role in these activities?
You know that apart from this, not only were the citizens, this particular act that you referred to, not only there, but also the hijab movement. There's a lot of evidence to show that the PFI has been one of the sponsors of this movement.
How do you see the tenure of the UPA in handling the PFI and vis-a-vis what we see now? Do you think it required political will and consultations with states, or just a decision that had to be taken?
You see, this is very unfortunate aspect. This is unfortunate truth that political sort of ideas intervene. The security of the nation, the security and welfare, peace and harmony becomes no action is taken. Now this is, I think, something which has to be corrected, and everybody should realize that the security of the nation is foremost, and it is of the greatest importance, and no political party thinking or ideology should be above this. And that I'm sure also will come forth in our own country, but maybe not immediately, and it will take a lot of time.
But the positive outcome we see soon after the ban, the kind of voices that are coming out from major political parties, whether it's the Congress or the CPIM or the CPI particularly, are supporting the ban. They're also saying that India will not allow any kind of extremist activity on lines of religion. Is that a no-go area? Is that a sign that political parties are realizing and have realized that they all need to be on the same side of the fence to be able to tackle a national security threat like this?
Here, the parties many parties do not have the vision or the foresight, and they just think about themselves only and where their votes are going to come from, where their electorate which they should cater to. Now, that is something which, as I already mentioned, I think we have to grow up and we have to see that what is good for the country is necessary. Whoever does it, whether it is in one state which is ruled by one party or at another state, it has to be commended, it has to be welcomed, because it is for the good of the people. Now, once this thinking comes in and the maturity of thought comes in, I'm sure there will be more of homogeneousness, and there will not be criticism of actions which are absolutely necessary and have to be taken, whether they are palatable or unpalatable.
If we talk about the police organizations in different states, as you have headed the Intelligence Bureau, how important do you think is the joint coordinated action by police forces, intelligence agencies, whether it's the NIA, ED, CBI, or the state police forces and the IB all together? How important is that in actually countering any kind of threat to the country?
Well, there is a lot of cooperation, I'm sure. Even in states where there is difficulty in the political leaders thinking, their direction, I think there is still that communication is continuing, because one reason is the Indian Administrative Service, and also the Indian Police Service. Now, these two services have their own, ethos, and that ethos is for the country always. And that, I think, overrides the problems which individual officers may be facing in some states in communicating and in cooperating with the center. Now, that is very positive, and I think it has worked well during difficult periods. There is a lot of coordination. As a matter of fact, even in this operation which has been conducted against the PFI, we see that there is a lot of activity and responsiveness and cooperation which has been given by the state police. So it was not an effort which was made by the central agencies, that is the NIA or any other agency which may be involved, but also at state level there has been a lot of work which has been done and good work which has been done. And so I think that as far as coordination is concerned, motivation continues, levels continue to be the same, whether it is the central organizations or in the state organization.
The ban on the PFI has been popular and not the organization itself, which was Popular Front of India. And this is a clear sign that India has rejected extremist ideology, extremism in all forms, and once again it has come together to support the democratic, secular fabric of the country.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. What you have said, that sums up thing. We are a secular country. We respect all types of thought, and we also respect human rights, and this is what we have to aim for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Ban on Popular Front of India and its affiliates. The participants were Arun Bhagat, former Director, Intelligence Bureau, and Namrata B.G. Ahuja, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.